Hey guys, how you doing today? I'd like to start this video out by shouting out to the people who are donating me money on Patreon. My Patreon is in the description down below, and I think my video that I did, which is about how I lost my job, so this is day one of unemployment, huzzah. um, I don't know, it seemed to touch some people, and I know that they've reached out and they've touched me, and it's been a very beautiful thing. And not only to the Patreon subscribers now, which thank you again for your support, guys. Thank you so much. But also to the people who are just reaching out and touching me with encouragement. Your stories, your comments have really been helpful during this period of time, and I'm pretty confident that I'm going to be able to turn around and get another job, so I think I'll be okay, but it doesn't make it any less difficult living in a society that has structured itself to be a wage slave society, which is what we are at. Speaking of that, the thing I want to do for today's video, the Financial Post releases an article with that I think really captures the propaganda that comes out of the far right and the neoliberal establishment, and how they've done a very good job of controlling the narrative, and there hasn't been a true counter narrative that has essentially called them out on their bullshit. Because neoliberalism, capitalism generally is a failed experiment, but neoliberalism certainly. I mean, for goodness sakes, you've got the Rand Corporation releasing its article saying that, hey, for the last 40 years, this money has not trickled down. So trickle-down economics is a complete failure. It doesn't work. But the Financial Post will still publish articles where people are using that language and are using that this terminology, which just flows into that sort of Hitlerian, is that a word? Hitlerian? But what Hitler said about this thing, which is, if you tell a lie long enough, right, it becomes the truth. And that's essentially what they're doing. They know that they've been outed. They know that everything they're saying here is nonsense and a brutal lie. But if they just keep at the lie, right, and there isn't a counter narrative that actually gets formulated and presented, and nobody actually calls them out in significant ways, then they can just continue lying. So here I am, right, to call them out on their nonsense, right? So if you're stumbling into this channel, hi, I'm here to debunk a lot of nonsense and to be a political commentary from a communist standpoint. Subscribe! All right. So the title of the piece, and I'll put it in the description below as well if you want to have a read of it yourself, but I'll be reading it here mainly. Opinion. Trudeau has presided over worst business investment growth of past 5 prime ministers. So for neoliberal capitalism, this is a disaster, right? That capitalism is supposed to grow forever in perpetuity. It's supposed to go forever and never stop. It's the biggest lie of neoliberal economics. Sorry, guys, I got a dog in here, and he's getting a kind of burpy, so he might bark in the middle of this. I apologize for that up front. So capitalism is supposed to grow forever and just never stop growing, and we'll go to Mars, and we'll take over the galaxy, and then we'll take over the galaxy next to us, and it's just supposed to continue growing forever without any sense that nothing operates that way, right? Nothing in the natural world exists in this manner, right? Everything eventually stops growing, right? Things grow, they stop growing, they decline. That's the natural cycle of life, unless you're an economist, or specifically a neoliberal economist. Then you can pretend like your system can grow forever without any repercussions whatsoever. It's this kind of delusional thinking which is at the core of it. So this is by Jason Clemens, Milagros Palacios, and Niels Veldhuis. It takes 3 people to write a 3-minute long video. That's how bad they are at this, so ha. Okay, so right off the bat, business investment in factories, machinery, equipment, and new technologies is vital to the prosperity of any country. They do a really good job of not pointing out that workers are necessary, right? Factories, machinery, equipment, new technologies, workers, right? The people who actually live in the country, the people who are actually doing the work, right? They don't talk about them. Those people are invisible because that's part of the propaganda, right? You can't actually talk about people. you can't actually talk about how people and how this is actually benefiting people matters, because they don't care about us, right? Like, I just got fired from my job, and I suspect it was because of this channel, right? Because I speak about pro-union things, and I speak about unionization, right? So they just dumped me because we live in a wage slave economy that is ruled by sociopaths, and here are some of them and their tactics. And tactic number one: ignore workers; they do not matter, right? If businesses don't invest to create jobs, says former Trudeau Finance Minister Bill Morneau in 2018, disgraced, by the way, left his post, then we won't have the future we want in our country. So this is just trickle-down nonsense, right? Like, you invest in business first. Don't invest in workers who we don't talk about. Don't invest in people first who we don't talk about. Invest in business first. What the oligarchs own, right? Like, we need to give money to oligarchs, and then that money will trickle down to us. That's Bill Morneau's position. That's the position of the Trudeau administration. That's the position of the Conservatives, and that's the position of the Financial Post. It's a brutal lie that has been discredited completely. It doesn't work. It doesn't function. And we're like, I don't give these guys any credibility whatsoever, right? Like, these guys are liars, and they're actively lying to you. But despite its importance, business investment is where the Trudeau government has performed worst, and yet continues to ignore the problem. So there's a couple of issues, right? Issue one, eventually the system stops growing, and it doesn't matter if it stops growing under Trudeau. Issue two, capitalism eventually destroys itself, right? That's how the system is designed to do that. Eventually it diminishes the wages and reduces the prosperity of the citizenry so badly that the citizens can't actually buy the goods that capital is producing, right? And so the system collapses, and that's how capitalism is designed. And just because we are at a moment where that is occurring, shouldn't surprise us. Like, these guys can't actually do a critical analysis of capitalism, because their view is literally give money to oligarchs, good. And if you have that perspective, you can't actually think rationally or be a rational person on the world stage. Between 2016 and 2019, an almost unprecedented course of business leaders warned about Canada's lagging competitiveness and declining attractiveness to entrepreneurs, business owners, and investors. They're talking explicitly about slavery. Like, anytime you get any of these guys talking about lagging competitiveness, it's because we don't use slave labor, right? That other countries are willing to use slave labor and are willing to enslave their populations in order to create cheap goods for the oligarch class. And that's the reason why Canada is lagging behind in competitiveness and is declining in attractiveness to entrepreneurs, business owners, and investors, i.e. the oligarch class. Right? This idea that there are like these small business people that these guys care about, they don't. They care about 6-7 billionaires, and anything else is sort of ancillary to that, right? These guys work on behalf of the billionaire class. They don't work on behalf of small business owners or anything like that. And so, yeah, like, a whole bunch of business leaders come out. I mean, a whole bunch of business leaders get paid off by the oligarch class to say that, yeah, we should use more slave labor, right? So that's why you have, like, I'll get into that later, actually. For instance, in 2018, David McKay, CEO of the Royal Bank of Canada, I don't know why we should be trusting this guy's opinion on anything, right? He's like a slaveholder, said Canada has a critical competitiveness challenge that should be addressed with tremendous urgency, adding that capital was leaving the country in real time. Brian Porter, CEO of Scotiabank, the world's country's most internationally oriented bank, warned both that Canada was losing its competitive advantage and that Kinder Morgan's decision to sell the Trans Mountain Pipeline could have a broad, chilling effect on foreign investment. David Dodge, former government of the Bank of Canada, said Canada was shooting itself in the foot in terms of competitiveness. And finally, Steve Williams, then CEO of Suncor, one of the world's largest energy companies, indicated his company was reducing investment in Canada because our regulatory system and general lack of competitiveness. We don't use slave labor. That's what this is saying. All of these people are saying that we need to have more slave labor, right? We need to enslave the population better. That's how you do business in a capitalist economy, is through slavery, right? And here's basically a laundry list of pro-slavery advocates: David McKay, Brian Porter, Kinder Morgan, for God's sakes, like Steve Williams. Like, there's your pro-slavery advocates. And if you've got pro-slavery advocates in your midst, you should root them out. And here I am saying, hey, you're slavers, you should get fucked. Unfortunately, at every turn, the Trudeau government's response has been that everything is fine, because everything is fine, right? We don't need slavery, right? We don't need capitalists, in fact. We should probably get rid of them. When questioned about the high cost of doing business in Canada and growing concerns about the country's ability to attract investment, Morneau declared that for an investor sitting outside this country, they can see that this is a place to do business. And he repeatedly stated that our plan is working. We've seen real improvements. And those improvements just are on files like the climate change file. The Trudeau administration is not ignoring climate change, right? And there are improvements to the society in small, tiny, itsy bitsy ways. But those aren't improvements to the offshore accounts of the oligarch class. So they're a failure, according to the Financial Post, right? And again, I'd like to say, I'm not defending the Trudeau Liberals. I think they're a terrible administration, right? They've supported the Yemeni genocide, right? They are going to support the invasion of Venezuela. Like, they, in a panic, erected a basic income system and then dismantled it the second they realized that it wouldn't benefit the oligarch class. Like, they'll say things like, we raise taxes on billionaires, and then immediately give billionaires like twice the amount that they took in other ways. So, no, the Trudeau administration is a piece of crap. And this idea that the Financial Post is going after the Trudeau administration, right? It's kind of a laughable joke in my view. But as we note in a new study, here, I'm just going to quickly click this study. I bet you anything. Fraser Institute. Yeah, the study is from the Fraser Institute. So here's black and white. If you are using the Fraser Institute in your article and you are not using another study, like, I'm fine if you want to use the Fraser Institute, even though they're clearly owned by the same billionaires who own the media, right? So it creates that kind of feedback loop, chamber echo sort of thing. But if you use the Fraser Institute, you have to use another source, right? Because the Fraser Institute, like, imagine if I had a newspaper and I bought a newspaper and then I also erected a PragerU style institution and then I use that newspaper to source that institution, right? Creating this feedback echo chamber that makes it look like there's actual research happening, that makes it look like there's actual stuff happening. But in the end, it's just a billionaire saying, this is what I want, right? So Financial Post using Fraser Institute articles, yep, completely uncredibly. I'm literally going through their hyperlinks here, and they're all Fraser Institute, right? So if you want to discredit yourself as fast as possible in the eyes of literally anyone with a brain in their head, just do exactly this. So, but as we note in a new study, Fraser Institute, it's an institute that lies to you on a regular basis. The data on business investment will tell a different story. Of course they will, they're liars. On the broadest measure of investment, which includes residential and non-residential, i.e. business, construction, machinery, equipment, and intellectual property. Notice no workers, no people, right? Not interested. The Trudeau government presided over an average annual decline of 0.2% in the 4 years leading up to the 2020 recession. Ooh, 0.2%. By comparison, in similar 4-year periods leading up to recessions, we find that the Harper government averaged 5.1% annual growth in business investment, and the Chrétien government enjoyed an annual growth of 7.5%. Because this, in my view, and there are probably a lot of factors, but here's one that definitely doesn't get any play in the media. The temporary foreign work program that was created under the Chrétien Liberals and then expanded under the Harper government is a slave system. Like, it's not even we live in a wage slave economy where the workers are paid wage slaves, wage slave wages, in order to just have subsistence living. And maybe we can get like a car if we're real lucky, right? Maybe if we're super lucky, we can get a house that we can then turn around and just like sell to pay for our meager retirements. But the temporary foreign work program is a slave system, right? It's a way to import cheap labor from foreign countries who work under the minimum wage, and then and you can treat them how you want because they're not citizens, right? So they created a second class. So yeah, of course, the Financial Post is lauding these business growths using slave labor, right? Like that's what's happening. They're using slave labor in order to do it. Of course, they'll never mention that because no one likes to admit that what they're fundamentally arguing for is slave labor, right? This is not just an energy sector problem. An analysis in 2019, Fraser Institute, of business investment in Canada between 2014 and 2017 found that 10 of Canada's 15 main industries experienced declines in business investment. Again, the capitalists are worthless, right? Like, why are we talking about business investment at all? The system has failed, right? But we're supposed to be like, oh no, business investment, oh no. Like, literally take the money away from these psychopaths, transfer the shares to the working class, and be done with this. Of course, like many industrialized countries, Canada has experienced a boom in residential construction, right? This boom in residential construction is really interesting because it's like a false economy, right? We already have enough housing. We already have enough housing to house everybody. And chances are good that like Canada is not going to experience a big boom in population anytime soon, especially as the millennials are having less children because they don't have any time, because they're being forced into these wage slave situations where they can't actually get anything done. Certainly not having sex with each other. Like, all of that is in decline. So we're not going to experience population growth, right? If you remove business investment in residential construction and focus more specifically on investment in plant, factory, machine, and equipment, the results are even worse. On average, and then there's just like numbers. Eventually there comes a point where the oligarchs already have all the money, right? Eventually the oligarchs just have all the money. Like, why would they invest if they have all the money? That's the central question I keep asking to these neoliberals. If the purpose of investment is to make money, why would anyone invest if they already had all the money? Like, if you're someone like if you have $100 billion, you don't really care, right? Like, you've just hired some people to manage this yourself. You're gonna like, and these hedge fund guys are just gonna, what are they gonna do? They're gonna look at that decline and they're just gonna short the market the way that they do, right? The way that we all know they do. So the Trudeau government has experienced the lowest average rates of growth of business investment. In fact, this growth has been negative over the past five ministers, going back to Brian Mulroney, right, who sold us completely out. Brian Mulroney is like one of the worst prime ministers maybe in the history of the nation, certainly in the history of the nation. I don't know why I said maybe, like, he certainly is. NAFTA was a complete sellout of the working class. It was a complete sellout of small businesses. It was a complete sellout to anyone who has any decency or respect for their neighbors. It literally is like Brian Mulroney's government, along with the Reagan government, along with the Thatcher government, all together colluded. And the reason why we are in the situation we are in now is because of the decisions they made. And here's the Financial Post defending them, right? So what's even more worrying is that there seems to be no acknowledgement of the problem in Ottawa or any interest in reversing course to policy to actually encourage and attract business investment to this country. Simply put, Canada's recovery cannot take hold unless business investment is revitalized, and this will require policy change in Ottawa. So, the way to grow an economy is to give money to 10 billionaires who will then offshore the wealth, and somehow that will grow the economy, right? That's essentially the thrust of this piece. They've couched it in the sort of propagandistic language of neoliberalism. And as I've said before on this channel, right, these guys are working really, really hard, and they're working overtime to find new language and new ways to repackage and sell the same failed ideology to you, right? And so articles like this come out, and the reason why, Jason Clemens, these three guys are economists at the Fraser Institute, right? So it's like this, the fact that the Financial Post is even publishing this tells you that they're completely corrupt, that it's not something to be taken seriously, right? Because the Fraser Institute, who owns the Fraser Institute right now? Let's just take a moment. I've got a little bit of extra time on this. So Fraser Institute, who owns? We have the internet, man. We can look things up. Here, let's take a look at the Wikipedia article. It has been described as politically conservative and libertarian. Yeah, no kidding. Headquartered in Vancouver, offices in Calgary, Toronto, Ontario. President is, well, one of the guys that wrote the article is the president of this. Yeah, so, okay. I'm not going to waste any more time here. So it's like set up by a handful of economists around the same time that Milton Friedman was walking around, right? Like Milton Friedman, the guy who sold everybody on this neoliberal idea of total failure, right? And like about the same time that you have people like Alan Greenspan actively saying out loud in Congress to everyone's joy and adulation that the way that we need to grow our economy is by crushing the working class. And creating a more and more desperate class. Yeah. So, okay, I'm gonna close this one out. That's the end of this article. If you guys made it to the end of this one and you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Huh? You don't have a communist in your feed, right? Like, I know you don't. And so, hey, here I am. Hello. Hi. Be sure to leave a like. Should be right there. Like. Be sure to share it. Really piss off your conservative uncle and your conservative father, right? Doink. And hey, guys, I'm recently unemployed, right? I got laid off, or not laid off. I got fired because of my political stance and my political position, like outright. I'm gonna keep saying that until I get any other reason. And so I need some money. Down in my description, there should be a Patreon. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys are killing it out there. And hey, for the people who really stuck around, little pug, it's my Loti Pants. He's a little pug. Yeah, he's a good boy. Okay, guys, I hope you're all doing well out there. Good luck. We're gonna need it.